Just want to remind everybody that all post commissioners have previously agreed to recuse themselves from any due to conflict of interest. The most obvious of these would include issues that involve their own departments or something they know personally. Because they've already agreed to this, it should be noted in our routine matters. It will be assumed non-verbally that they've abstained in bigger, more controversial issues that may have a more overt conflict of interest. That may have an appearance of impropriety. Those applicable commissioners will abstain verbally from those votes. Our voting members of this subcommittee today are going to be Wilbur, Beverly, and Jeffers. And so we will get started by calling the roll this morning to see who's here. Selane Batterson. Here, sir. Mcglasson.
Here, sir.
Lockhart.
Here. Present.
Confer. Ralph Edward Confer. Lunsford. Anastasia Lunsford. Pomerance. Shelby Pomerance. Ryder Adkins. Ryder Adkins. Jason Hill.
Here.
Britton Wan.
Here.
Tanner Jackson.
Here, sir.
All right, we'll get started. Chattanooga Police Department, and the issue here was Selane Batterson. Mr. Batterson was submitted for decertification based on his resignation during an internal investigation. Would a representative of the Chattanooga Police Department please step forward? If you would, sir, just identify yourself by name and position, and then state why you're here.
Yes, sir. Good morning. My name is Terry Barnes. I'm an internal affairs sergeant with the Chattanooga Police Department. Before I get started on the facts of any of the cases that I'm about to present to you, there's an important matter that I need to discuss with the board if it would be okay. What brings us here today is an officer-involved shooting involving Mr. Batterson. This occurred on August 11th, 2023 in Chattanooga, Tennessee, while he was employed with our agency. This incident resulted in the death of a man named Roger Hurd that is documented under our IA case number 2023-081. Mr. Batterson resigned under investigation from our agency on May 1st of this year. Recently, Roger Hurd's family filed suit in federal court last month on August 7th against Mr. Batterson and the city of Chattanooga. The facts involving Mr. Batterson's OIS and 2023-081 are subject to a current federal civil rights case. Given these unusual circumstances, I feel it would not be prudent to discuss the details and facts of that case here and now with this board. I understand the board has a difficult job to do. I'm certainly not trying to make things any more difficult than they already are. However, I am respectfully asking you to release me from my obligation of talking about those details here today. Like I said, Mr. Batterson resigned May 1st, 2024 under 3 separate internal affairs investigations. I'm ready to proceed on the other 2.
Okay, if you would just stand by, and Mr. Batterson, can you step up, please? Yes. Do you wish to present your side today?
I'll be quite honest, sir. Based on the packet that was submitted to post, it was my understanding that the incident that we would be here discussing primarily would be the Taze incident. I was not made aware that we would be discussing at all the circumstances of the officer-involved shooting where I was shot and the other individual subsequently shot. Further, I would say that that case was cleared by the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation of any wrongdoing. It was also cleared by the district attorney's office for any wrongdoing. The suit that was discussed here is on a civil suit. I would be comfortable talking about the tasing incident that was submitted to post and potentially some of the questions that may arise from the officer involved shooting, but I do share a concern that if it got too deep, that could cause some conflict for the city and myself.
Well, the options today, if we don't move forward, what we typically do is have the officer who's been brought for decertification. We ask them to sign a voluntary surrender of their post commission until such time as the matter has been resolved in the other court because of the pending litigation.
There's no criminal charges that are filed against me. This is a civil suit. And so if the options were to move forward today and retain my post or to voluntarily surrender my post, I would not be willing to voluntarily surrender my post.
Okay, have a seat if you would. Sir, would you step back up? So are you prepared to talk about the incident that was submitted to the Peace Officer Standards and Training Commission with regard to a tasing?
Yes, sir.
Then proceed on why you were here.
Thank you. This investigation was launched on February 13th of this year. Facts are as follows. February 10th, Mr. Batterson was off duty while visiting another officer at local hospital in Chattanooga, Tennessee. Another Hamilton County Sheriff's deputy was also on the premises guarding a prisoner from the jail. Conversation began between Mr. Batterson, the two other female officers. The sheriff's deputy wanted to know what it felt like to be tased, or expressed an interest in what it would feel like to be tased. Officer Batterson removed the taser from the other female officer who was sitting with all three of them and removed the cartridge and proceeded to drive stun this officer with the sheriff's department while she was on duty, while she was working, while she was guarding a prisoner. Investigation began. It was determined that Mr. Batterson inappropriately made contact with that deputy before he could be interviewed about and questioned about this matter. He was ultimately interviewed, and he admitted himself to me personally that his conduct wasn't could be considered unprofessional.
Questions from the commissioners?
Commissioner Carter, I've got a question. While she was guarding the prisoner, when she got dry stun, was she temporarily incapacitated?
No, sir. She did have visible injuries that were documented in the day or two following with her own chain of command. She was basically shocked that it occurred from what I could gather after interviewing her. She couldn't believe that he actually did that. And from her perspective, she laughed it off because she was afraid that the other officers would not support her had she had to get physical with the prisoner she was guarding. She was really at a loss for words when this occurred.
Okay, so just to be clear, that didn't hinder her ability to guard the prisoner?
No, sir, it didn't.
Okay,
Not immediately.
thank you.
I'd like to add also that our policy on the tasers is quite extensive. There are a lot of requirements in order to use it. Probable cause, plain felon, things of that nature. None of those elements were met. We also have very explicit instructions what to do after we tase someone. Those things, those elements were also not met. This was not an authorized use of our taser by our policy.
what, sort of disciplinary action did he receive? From
I'm
that
sorry,
incident? What sort of disciplinary action did he receive from that incident?
He resigned prior to this, to having a disciplinary hearing.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
Is, what would your recommendation from investigating this in internal affairs, what would the recommendation have been to the chief of the department for him had he not resigned prior to the conclusion of this investigation?
Given the facts of what took place, our investigation revealed that he did in fact commit an aggravated assault. The deputy that was involved in this, she did not wish to press charges. That's her right, her choice. However, the elements were definitely there. The taser, as many of you know, are considered to be dangerous weapons. They be treated as such. Our policy strictly forbids any kind of horseplay with those tasers. That would be an element of this. So that, along with unbecoming conduct, those could be, I believe, an aggravated assault would be an automatic termination. Unbecoming conduct could result in termination or our maximum penalty of a month off of pay.
And just to clarify, our officers, do they review the policy when they're hired, when they're issued their taser? Do they review the policy?
That is something that is brought up every year during our in-service training. It's also something that is when our policies come up, empowered EMS to sign off on regularly. It's also in black and white.
Does the Chattanooga Police Department offer training to the officers on the proper use of the taser and how to use it?
Every officer who has gone through our academy has received an extensive amount of training regarding the taser. And it is echoed throughout that training that these weapons are considered to be dangerous and should be treated as such.
Commissioner Green, is he a trainer with a taser?
Sir, he is not, no.
Commissioner Beverly, can you establish a timeline? You mentioned that during the investigation, he made contact with the Hamilton County Sheriff's Deputy. Was that before or after the initiation of this internal investigation?
He was notified that he was under investigation and then began to text the deputy involved and was trying, and even placed a phone call to her, if I recall correctly, sort of trying to find out information about it. Our investigation determined that was inappropriate.
Were you able to get copies of those text messages or?
I interviewed Deputy Rossetter at length. There were a lot of things that she said that were said during that conversation. There was a text message after he was placed on administrative leave, indicating, I guess you changed your mind about something in the nature of filing a report or reporting this incident. I was forced at that point, after hearing that from Deputy Rossetter and her chain of command, to issue a directive to Mr. Batterson not to further communicate with this party until he had been in there, period. Because that contact was deemed to be inappropriate.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the representative from the City of Chattanooga Police Department? Hearing that, sir, if you would have a seat, and we may call you back up. Mr. Batterson, certainly. If you would, I know we know who you are, but if you would just, for the record, identify yourselves and state your side of this.
My name is Kelvin Batterson. I apologize, I'm battling a cold. My son brings home everything from school, so I apologize up front. I would like to first let the board know that I in no way, shape, or form deny wrongdoing. I own the fact that I made a mistake. I'm not here to dispute wrongdoing, and I have paid greatly for this mistake. What I take issue with is the modification of my allegations once the investigation had concluded, as well as the characterization of the circumstances. It's clear to me that there are individuals at the Chattanooga Police Department that wish for this to be aggravated assault. Fortunately, in the justice system, that wish is not enough. There is plenty of activity that individuals engage in that could be looked at as criminal if it not were for statements like we see on page 4. On page 4, the interview with the individual who was tased, and I'll read it verbatim. When asked if this matter reached the threshold of assault as defined by state law, she, the individual who was tased, stated no. No. The next word is and. And is typically inconsequential, but in this statement, I think it has impact because it separates two thoughts. It's no, there wasn't a criminal offense, and that she did not feel like there was malicious intent behind Officer Batterson's tasing her. By that statement alone, there is no criminal offense.
Commissioner Wilbur, just so you know, I'm an appellate prosecutor with the Office of the Attorney General, and it is a criminal offense what you did, and it is aggravated assault, no matter what her mental state is and whether she wants to prosecute. So let's just admit that you committed an aggravated assault.
I appreciate that. I think that the circumstances of the situation matter. I think that she was a willing participant, and I'll expound upon that a little bit more. That she was a willing participant in the activity. It wasn't as was categorized, shocking to the individual, and I'll go into why I think that is. But I understand your position. To get into the incident itself, as was stated, I went to the hospital where another officer was working an extra job, brought them dinner. That officer led us to a location of the hospital that was controlled. All the entry points and exit points were electronically controlled. It was not open to the general public. We were sitting at what could be best described as like a workstation where a security guard was. I was sitting directly across from the deputy. We were having general conversations. We were laughing. The deputy expressed a desire to go to the road. And what the deputy said to me exactly was, I want to know what it feels like to be tased. That statement was so clear that on page 6, the other officer who was present with me also felt like the deputy wanted to be tased. I replied, I said, okay. I grabbed the taser from the other officer. I removed the cartridges. I placed the taser on the outside of the deputy's knee. I paused and looked at the deputy to make sure, like, is this okay? She didn't say anything. There was no aversion. She gave me a look that I interpreted as, what are you waiting for, quite honestly. I turned on the taser and I activated the arc switch, not the trigger. The arc switch only allows the system to operate so long as it's depressed. I depressed it, released it. There was really no reaction from the deputy. I handed the taser back to the officer, and then we immediately engaged in conversation. The first thing that deputy said was, that wasn't bad. That reminds me of a time, and they went into a story about where a supervisor had grabbed them with a glove in the jail system that has similar capabilities, I assume. I'm not familiar with it. And then we immediately rolled into complete conversation about the taser. We talked about the effectiveness of it, the difference between probes and no probes, body composition, clothing, intoxication. We went into great depth about the taser and its effectiveness. And then we remained talking for the rest of the evening, laughing. There was, at no point in time was there any indication that the deputy was not a willing participant, that there was an issue, that they were upset by what had occurred. There was no disorder that happened. There was no disruption of daily activity around us. Further, there was no attention drawn to us outside of the individuals directly involved in the conversation. As stated, I'm not a certified taser instructor. That is not a proper training environment, even if I was. But I want the board to understand that this was not me joking. This wasn't me just getting an officer with a taser. I wasn't really trying to horseplay with it. Those aren't the circumstances. It doesn't excuse anything. But I think the context of the situation matters greatly in this situation.
Commissioner Wilbur, context. So what is the purpose of deploying a taser
In this instance or in normal,
according to police procedure policy manual?
if you are trying to effect an arrest or gain compliance with a suspect,
So this officer was guarding a prisoner and could have potentially been incapacitated by the taser.
the prisoner that was brought up was in another room with a closed, secure door and was handcuffed to a bed. We were off in another location eating dinner.
Do you think that makes a difference?
I think in no way, shape, or form did my action prevent the officer from maintaining their current status or duty. And I don't think I put any of us at risk of being like attacked or not being able to respond to if that prisoner somehow broke out of handcuffs and a locked room.
When under your policy are you permitted, allowed to deploy a taser? What,
When you are effecting an arrest or attempting to gain compliance, excuse me.
so do you admit wrongdoing?
Yeah, absolutely. As I stated at the beginning of this, I admit that I made a mistake and I did wrong.
Where are you currently working?
I currently work for Cleveland State Community College as a police officer there.
Thank you. Those are my questions.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
This is Commissioner Green.
Yes,
Were you in
ma'am.
civilian clothes at the time this occurred?
I was in the approved uniform for my unit, which is plain clothes, with my drop holster on. I was on call with the city at that time. I technically was being paid. It was $10 or so, but I was on call at the time. And I was in the approved uniform for the unit that I served.
Were other people present that would, besides the two officers?
There was one armed security guard there.
I'll go back to, despite your approved uniform, was it civilian clothes?
Yes, sir. It was.
So
give me
the
that
other
description.
person, it would appear a civilian just took the taser from another officer and tased another officer.
No, sir. I had a clear duty belt on that was visible with a badge that was also visible on the front of my thigh, riding high on my thigh with a firearm.
That's fine.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
With regard to why you were there at the hospital, is it standard operating procedure to, to get in your, I assume, did you drive there in a department vehicle?
Yes, sir, I did.
So you were on call, you were in uniform to go visit with other officers?
Yes, sir. Yeah, that happens frequently. Yes, sir. It's when I work extra jobs or anybody else works extra jobs, we visit each other all the time.
I have a question, even though I'm not a voting member, but
Go ahead.
since I'm an alternate for the internal affairs officer. I've been up here going on 6 years now, and I've said 3 years as chair of this board. I've heard a lot of stories. Just when you think you've heard it all, you hear some more. By chance, did the administration of the Hamilton County Sheriff's Office that you know of have any disciplinary action with the deputy that this taser belonged to that was guarding this inmate?
So the taser that was taken was one of our own officers, not a Hamilton County deputy. There are two women. The one who was tased was a Hamilton County deputy. The other female officer was, and still is, one of our own police officers.
What kind of action was taken on the officer that was possessing the taser that allowed that taser to be used?
I know a lot, that was sustained was unsatisfactory performance and things of that nature, and not reporting this incident the way that she should have.
Okay. Do you know of any action just off the top of your head with the Hamilton County Guard?
No, sir, I'm not aware of anything that happened to Deputy Rossetter as a result of this. Their internal affairs conducted their own interview on that end, and I couldn't speak to that.
Okay, I have some questions for this fella here now.
Mr. Batterson, can you step back up?
Yes, sir.
Sir, I'm sorry you're here.
I am too, sir.
You seem to be, fairly articulate. I bet you write really good reports,
I did.
and, you were probably a really good officer for Chattanooga, being in the unit you were in. But this is about the stupidest damn thing I've heard since I've been up here on this commission. Of justification of what you did at that hospital while an inmate was guarded. And putting that many people at risk in life. I'm so thankful that wasn't one of my inmates and one of my deputies at Erlanger, because it could have very well been. And you tell me you're at Cleveland working now?
Yes, sir.
Please tell me they don't call you up there to do some special instructions or something inside a police academy over there.
No, sir.
I just wanted to make that statement to anybody listening to this, is about the stupidest conduct that could have happened. This is how you make national news. If something tragic would have happened to that deputy for the sheriff's office, and then, what this inmate, did you know what that inmate was there for? I guess you knew all the background of the inmate and what their charges were, and you knew why they were there, and you knew all of that?
I knew that they were there, but
No, you knew better.
yes, sir. I agree. Like as I
You
stated,
knew better.
I did.
And when Commissioner over here tells you committed aggravated assault on a willing participant, well, there's also this thing called rape. And no means no, and yes means yes. Yes, right? You've understood those charges before. I'm just giving you I'm just articulating here a little bit, but what you said earlier, that this was a willing participant. And you've heard that saying, you can't rape the willing. Well, yes, you can, sir. You can also assault the willing.
And that same individual, and I understand that.
And I'm not trying to be argumentative. I'm just early this morning. I didn't think we would get started this quick, well, Director, but with stupidity, pure stupidity. One of the stupidest things I've heard in my 32 years of law enforcement. And I've done some pretty stupid stuff myself, but nothing this stupid.
I'd like to bring up 2 points if I can.
I don't want to hear them. I appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
I feel better now.
Back to a point you made, or a statement that you made earlier, that before you delivered the shock with the taser into the knee of the deputy, that you looked at her and she looked at you, and you basically assumed that she was looking at you like, get on with it. But then we read here that obviously, that wasn't the case. I mean, how do you square that?
Well, because I have no ill will towards the deputy. I have reason to believe that the deputy was under the impression that they were going to receive the same amount of punishment for being a willing participant in this as I am. And I would say that the evidence from the video and the context of the conversation somewhat conflict with later statements that they were shocked by the action. As I've outlined, we had a full discussion about it. The other officer that was with me had the same thought process based on what that deputy had said. Now, again, I said it was wrong. I'm not justifying what I did. I just want some understanding around the circumstances specifically. In my years of law enforcement, I'm not trying to cast any shadow on law enforcement, but I know of multiple instances where officers use less than lethal equipment on each other, and it's not right. It doesn't make this right in any way, but it's how I got to a place of complicity in this situation where I should have given it more care. Again, I'm not trying to make excuses. I just think the circumstances behind this, if I had just gone up and tased somebody unexpectedly, which is what I normally see happen, I could understand. I would understand 100%, and I wouldn't be saying anything that I am today. But the circumstances of this situation, the conversation that led up to it, the conversations that we continue. If somebody tased me and I didn't know it was coming or I didn't want it, I absolutely would not sit there and continuously talk with, laugh with, spend the evening with, and wait 3 days to report.
But that person was guarding an inmate, so I don't think it's reasonable to think that she could have just left. I mean, that would have left.
No,
the inmate unguarded.
But I think,
So-
I mean, if I tased you right now, I'm fairly confident you would make it very clear to me that that was not what you wanted. Like, there would be some sort of conflict or even aversion, or what are you doing? Any type of indication that would have said that I misinterpreted the situation.
Well, I mean, I carried a taser, on patrol and, I mean, this never happened.
Commissioner Beverly, I just want to make a point. The deputy's perception of how this happened is very minute in the overall scope of this. It's your actions that are what we're speaking of. It's not her perception. Just because she finds it acceptable doesn't change the fact that that should not have happened.
I agree.
And I find issue with the justification of, well, I was on call, so I drove a department vehicle off duty. Did you how long were you up there at the hospital?
I stayed until the remainder of that shift. I was there all night.
How many hours?
I don't know off the top of my head, to be honest with you.
Was any of that time put on your time sheet for the Chattanooga Police Department?
No, sir.
So you were just subject to call, but you were not actively performing?
Yeah, if something happened, I would have to respond. I potentially would have to respond with my gear and equipment and everything I have. So it's all with,
But you didn't show up there subject to call out?
no, I did not show up there subject to call.
Okay. Do you see how, from our perspective, you showed up with a badge and gun to the hospital to visit another officer and drop them dinner? You then spend the entire shift there socializing. There's an issue with that, and that the other officer could not perform their duties because they're being distracted. Because someone is visiting them while they're supposed to be working. And then a major distraction happened with a deputy being tased, I'm sorry. There is a domino effect of your actions that have caused widespread implication that put other officers and the people in that hospital and even the prisoners' capabilities in jeopardy. That is what the issue is. The deputy's perception of, well, I asked to be tased or I'm okay with it, doesn't matter.
I agree with that to the point, but like I said, I agree that I made a mistake. I agree to that. And you know, I'm not here to dispute that. The only reason that I expounded upon what I have was to show the circumstances. It wasn't to negate the fact that I had any wrongdoing. I own it and I paid for it dearly. I feel like I was forced from a department that I had tenure with. I had to leave a unit that I helped create that I was very proud of. I've been impacted substantially financially. And I don't know if it's quantifiable, but I guarantee you based on the stress alone that I've lost years off of whatever life I have left. So I apologize. I did wrong. I own it. The incidences that I'm aware of where officers have tased another officer rarely, if ever, reach this level. And I didn't expect it. I'm here today and I'm owning it.
Why did you resign under investigation?
Once the investigation had concluded and the allegation had changed from misuse of equipment, which is where it normally lands, and was upgraded, I quite honestly did not feel comfortable going into a disciplinary hearing with the chief that was in place at the time. That it was expressed to me how that was going to go. I had personal issue with that prior chief. And I just did not feel comfortable going into that disciplinary hearing with that particular administration at the time.
Commissioner Jeffers, given the, I'll have a question for you. Given the information given and statements given and everything we have here, at this time, I'll make a motion to decertify.
Commissioner Beverly, second.
We have a motion to decertify and a second. Do we have any discussion amongst the commissioners? Hearing none, we'll take the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Hearing none. Motion carries. Council, would you like to explain to him the next steps?
Thank you.
Hold on, sir.
Mr. Batterson, your post-commission, certification would be decertified. You do have 30 days to appeal to a formal hearing. And investigator Kevin Creed will get you a business card, in case you have any questions. If you want to file that appeal.
Moving on, Greenbrier Police Department, Davin Mcglasson. Mr. Mcglasson was submitted for decertification based on submitting false information to his employer, which was then submitted to post.
Two roles.
I believe we have, you'll hang on just one moment. Investigator Creed, we know who you are, but can you identify yourself for the record and your position?
Kevin Creed, post investigator. So legal gave us a case to look into to investigate regarding Ms. Mcglasson. Ms. Mcglasson is a current post certified officer within the state of Tennessee. His prior agency that he worked for during the period of this investigation, it seems he did not get a waiver for military service DD 214 for an uncharacterized discharge. By reviewing that, I found some inconsistencies in his file of, I brought it forward to the meeting last month that the commission decided to bring him to an informal today for decertification. Some of those inconsistencies in his post file were on his basic law enforcement application to come to Toledo. In your package, you'll have on page 2, it says military service, the box is checked no. Also for his application for certification, they become a post certified officer. On the second page of that, it says military service, the box is checked no. I also reached out to the prior department that he worked for their personnel file on this individual. And on his application for an employment, he was actually hired October 19th of 2023 with that agency. He resigned July 18th of 2024. He attended Toledo in January of 2024, but in his actual application for that agency, on his police officer application supplement, there's another box that says, have you ever been discharged from any branch of armed forces of the United States? He did check yes to that. Then the next box, it says, have you ever been discharged from the military under anything other than honorable discharge? The box is checked no on that. These forms are all signed by Mr. Mcglasson. In your package, you'll have the application for employment from that agency. You'll see his signature on it with the box checked no for other than honorable. On the application for a law enforcement school, you'll see it's a digital signature on that application where he checked no for military service. And there's also another box that says for his application to become a post officer, it's checked no and signed by him, actually with a pen on that one. Investigating this, I also spoke to the original GDI, the department instructor from the original agency, and stated, is there a DD 214 in this? And he stated that he does believe that he said during the interview process that he was in the service, and he thought there would be a DD 214 in his packet. And he did not understand why the information wasn't checked properly. He does not know if that's a clerical issue or not. He is here present today. I don't know if he's going to speak, but he does not. He no longer works at that agency. So Ms. Mcglasson applied for at least 2 agencies in this meantime, and that's how part of this got brought to post attention. He applied to Summit County Sheriff's Department, and during that investigation, he did disclose to them that he had military service and gave them his TD 214, which was uncharacterized, which would require a waiver. And I think they reached out originally to Post to see if they could get a waiver for him. In the meantime, this officer got, since he resigned from the original agency, he got hired by Greenbrier Police Department. And as of, I believe, 2 weeks ago, when I went there for my visit to Greenbrier Police Department, he was currently working as a police officer in uniform without the waiver in place. I believe they're on the agenda for tomorrow to get that waiver approved, depending on the outcome of today's hearing. And I believe Ms. Mcglasson's here, but that's all I have. If you have any questions for me.
Investigator Creed, you said he was working at the Greenbrier Police Department. Was the agency head aware that he had a discharge that would require a waiver?
Yes, I believe they attempted to get a waiver for him and was put on this month's agenda for tomorrow. But in the meantime, he was still working as a police officer in the FTO program, I believe.
Through your investigation, were you able to determine if anybody knew the post rules and advised the agency head that he could not work during that time?
I explained when I went to my visit that he could not work as a police officer because he needed a waiver to meet pre-employment conditions. Since currently he does not meet pre-employment conditions to work anywhere in the state of Tennessee. And I believe that date and time, they were taking him off the road and not making him work patrol. But he was working in uniform and as a sworn officer.
Questions from the commission for the investigator?
Just one other thing I would like to point out, Mr. Mcglasson, when I reached out to him, he did provide me with his DD 214 pretty quickly and did satisfactorily give me all the information I requested. And when he did get hired at Greenbrier, he did disclose that he had military service, just like he did with Sumner County Sheriff's Department. And those are the only two agencies that I know he applied for. It's just the inconsistencies in the paperwork and all the stuff that would require a waiver to get into the academy in the first place is that I located. Thank you.
Mcglasson,
Sir.
can identify yourself for the record and give your side?
Davin Mcglasson. So, originally I enlisted, it was Army National Guard, 2015. I was in the recruit sustainment program. You go to drill before you can go to basic. So I did that 2 times. I went to basic training. My ship date was March 25th, 2015. I think 3 to 4 weeks into basic training, the first sergeant of the company called me over. He was like, I'm sorry to tell you, but your grandmother passed away. It was at that time, she's the one that raised me. She was basically my mother. She was my guardian. At that time, the military didn't consider her immediate family for whatever reason. So they said, we can't let you go to any services. And I was, that honestly, I had to go to her services because she's the one that raised me. It was like the only way is if you were to get discharged, maybe come back at a later date. So at that time, I received entry-level separation for that. And my rejoin code is a 3. I'm eligible to rejoin any branch of the military. I've talked to recruiters in the past about possibly going back in at a later date. And then I worked in corrections and stuff. And then I started at Millersville Police Department in October of 23. And it was at that time, everything went through fine. I did not know I needed anything else. To the best of my knowledge, everything was taken care of. I started Toledo January 7th this year, graduated March 28th, class 2024. A few months after that, I thought that current department is no longer a fit for me. So I wanted to join, kind of a department for the long run. And at that time, I applied for Sumner County. Lieutenant Cripps reached out to me. He was the first one that told me everything was going on. I was kind of just, I guess, awestruck because I had no idea I even needed anything to get post-certified. And I submitted my DD 214 with my application and everything for Millersville originally. Then I started working for Greenbrier. That's when everything got brought back up. And immediately when everything got brought back up, I've been working front desk, just helping out for about a month now. So originally I was on patrol. It was like 2 weeks, and then they immediately put me working the front desk until this was taken care of. Today I got Sergeant Curtis Scott. He's here too, if you would like to hear from him. He's the one that hired me. He no longer works there as well. But he said he would come and get his side, and if that's something you'd like to hear.
Commissioner Wilbur, I'll just ask the question, why did you check the box no on prior service?
I can't recall myself doing that. It might have just been a mistake on my part. Off the top of my head, I honestly don't remember doing that. I submitted my DD 214 with the department when I got hired. And I honestly, off the top of my head, I don't remember doing that. I wasn't trying to hide anything at all. To the best of my knowledge, everything was taken care of.
Did you go AWOL to attend your grandmother's funeral?
No, ma'am, I received, it's an entry level separation uncharacterized. And I checked honorable, because to the best of my knowledge, it's still within honorable conditions. That may not be the case, but that, to the best of my knowledge, it's still under honorable. It's just uncharacterized. If you're in the service for less than 6 months, they give you uncharacterized, so it doesn't, affect anything later in your life. You can, work pretty much anywhere. It's just uncharacterized entry level. I left, she probably passed away mid-April. I probably left 2 weeks after that, after all my paperwork to get discharged was done. And met up with my recruiter, checked my IV, all that stuff, and did everything I need to do for my family after that. And like I said, they've even reached out to me and said, "You're eligible to rejoin the military." It was a big deal at the time, and I didn't know all this would come of it.
So, I guess you said you gave them the DD form of
Yes,
your
ma'am.
first employer?
Yes, ma'am, with my initial application. I believe it just it was a clerical issue with somebody didn't submit something that was supposed to be submitted.
How many times did we check the box then?
So I'm just looking at our paperwork, and he checked the box once on the application for basic law enforcement school. Military service, no. And there's a ink signature on that, multiple. And then on the application for certification, he also checked no for military service. And there is a signature on that. And just for clarification to this informal committee, in bold, right above the signature line, it says any person who with the intent to deceive makes any false statement on this document commits the offense of perjury pursuant to TCA 39-16-702. And then the next line is, I certify that the information on this application is true and correct to the best of my knowledge. Had he checked yes to that, and there had been an uncharacterized discharge until such time as he would have received a waiver, he would not have been allowed to attend the Tennessee Law Enforcement Training Academy. So he's checked it, signed it twice, including one document that stated that it was true and correct, and that false information could be or would constitute perjury.
Commissioner Beverly, I want to clarify, I'm looking at your application to Millersville, and it appears that you did check that you were discharged from a branch of the military and it was anything other than honorable, you put no.
Like I said, to the best of my knowledge, I talked to my recruiter when I got out. To the best of my knowledge, to be honest, I thought the uncharacterized was still under honorable conditions. That's the way it's always been explained to me. It's uncharacterized, but it can still be under honorable conditions. That's, to the best of my knowledge, that's what I thought.
What does your discharge paper say? Does it say honorable discharge?
It says entry level uncharacterized.
And so you interpreted that to mean honorable discharge?
Yes, ma'am, that's, I tried to do research on my own when I got out, and that's just what I found. That's what my recruiter told me. It may have been a misinformation on his part as well, but that's just what I've thought for the past almost 10 years since I've been out. It was still considered honorable.
I think I'm just having trouble with the fact that you can't check a box and you don't understand the plain meaning of words. Can you tell this commission that you did not have the ability to deceive?
I did not. That's why I submitted my DD 214 with my application, as well as when I was trying to leave my former department. With every department I applied for after that, all the necessary paperwork was submitted. I would never try to deceive post commissioner or anybody about my military service. Yes, ma'am.
But you have you had a DD 214 in hand. You provided it to the department.
Yes, sir.
But then when it came time on not one occasion, but two occasions to select whether or not you had military service, you mistakenly checked no, even though you had military discharge paperwork in hand. We're to believe it's a mistake.
Yes, sir. I wasn't trying to deceive. I don't remember. I don't know why that happened.
Check no and then sign it. That's how it happened.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I'm not saying I didn't, but for whatever reason, I don't know why I did that. I wasn't trying to deceive anybody. I wasn't even aware like the waiver was needed. Submitted everything that I thought I needed.
It just, I mean, I guess to me, it's not adding up.
Right, yes, sir.
When did, Commissioner Beverly, and when did you apply to your initial department?
I applied there mid of last year. I don't remember the application date. I interviewed maybe June or July. We'll do the process with psychological tests and everything. Interview, everything, came back, they wanted to hire me. So I started on October 19th of 23.
How many job applications did you fill out for that agency?
I had applied there previously. But with that one, it was just once that I was interviewed and I was hired.
I guess what I'm getting at is, did you fill out multiple applications for that agency? Multiple job applications for consideration?
I think over the course of like a year or so, I did. Yes, sir.
And the reason for my question is the signature on his job application with that agency is 10/26. Let's see, make sure I have this correct. (10/26) of 2023, but the application for police officer was filled out. Looks like it has a signature of 9/7/2023. So that's why I was asking how many job applications, because in the city, with the city of Millersville, police department application, it was. You marked that you did have military service on their supplement. But that application looks like it was dated after your application to be a police cadet, so I'm confused on the timeline.
I'm not sure either. I applied mid last year, and like I said, I took a psych and everything maybe in August, and then I started on 10/19. 23 was my first day reporting for training.
Commissioner Beverly, it looks like his psychological is dated September 6th and then filled out on September 13th. And his medical form is signed as being completed on September 12th of 2023 as well.
Thank you. I'm just, again, there's an authorization, I guess, where you consider you're authorizing them to do a background check. And
Yes, sir.
was that signed at the time of your application? Where you were ready to begin the process, the right to investigate your references, release information about your ability, fitness, liability forms, job-related necessities, all of that stuff. Is that completed at the time of your application?
I believe it might have been, or when I passed the interview, they might have given me a background. I can't remember exactly what all was attached to the application. There could have been a background authorization form on there that I filled out as soon as I applied.
Well, what I'm concerned about is the date of your interview was August 22nd of 2023. Your hire date was 10/19 of 2023, but I'm looking at a job application that is dated after your hire date. And if you filled out multiple applications, I'm wanting to see the previous applications to compare them. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir. I get what you're saying. I don't know why it was.
I think I can jump in.
Thank you.
Post investigator Creve again. That looks like it's a peace officer application supplement. So from my past experience, that would be after the person for the background investigation and stuff like that. I wouldn't be the initial investigation. Just from my past experience, I don't know what this agency did at that time.
Thank you.
Commissioner Jefferson, who did you say you brought with you today?
Curtis Scott, he was a sergeant. He hired me At the time, he's no longer with the department. So,
Okay, did this sergeant handle paperwork or what's the correlation here?
Yes, he's the one that hired me. Him and one of the detectives did my background and everything.
Okay. All right. So you don't care, sir?
Curtis Scott.
So were you the one responsible to double check his paperwork or you just kind of give me the?
Yes, sir. So normally what would happen is after the officer we interview them, they get hired. I would fill out the paperwork for them, have them review it and have them sign it. And then have the chief of police, or in this case, it was Lieutenant Consiglio who signed the authorization on the form. So that's how those boxes probably got checked wrongly.
So basically what it is, you're filling out the paperwork.
Yes,
And
sir.
then after the paperwork that you filled out for him
Yes.
on his behalf, and then after that's done, then the officer will come back and then sign off on what it is that you checked off on.
Yes, sir. I had the academy paperwork and application, all that, and I would fill all that out and then have the officer check their information on it, have them sign it, and then give it to the chief of police after that.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
So I guess question for you then, did it not raise a red flag to you that they put down no for military service? Not once, but twice. I mean, you signed it. You signed it under the perjury statement.
Right.
So
Yes.
it doesn't matter. I mean, who filled it out? Did you check it?
I'm not sure if I looked over it. I thought everything was taken care of correctly as far as I knew, sir.
Commissioner, go ahead.
Commissioner Carter, I'm a veteran, and I'm trying to process how you confuse your character service uncharacterized as to what honorable discharge is that you thought that you had, or?
As far as I thought, sir, uncharacterized was just like the sub thing of honorable. That's why, honestly, my recruiter, he was wrong, obviously, but it was like 10 years ago. That's why he explained it to me. It wasn't going to affect anything with it, things like that.
They might need to explain some things to that recruiter.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Yes, sir.
Commissioner Jeffers, did you have?
Well, I was trying to, this re-enlistment eligibility code, I was getting ready to try to Google it to see what it meant, because I didn't know if it would give me an answer here or not.
Dennis Gregory for the agency. RE code 3, essentially, there's 4 RE code. 1 is you come back in and re-enlist. 2, 3, and 4, you likely are going to need a waiver of some kind. He has a 3. I would have expected more like a 2 there. Don't know why it's a 3. It would likely require a waiver, probably would have been approved as such, because his release doesn't have anything to do with drugs or alcohol or violence. And it sounds like you got some barracks lawyer advice. It probably didn't help in terms of the way we saw this later on. But yeah, the RE3, RE4 typically means you're going to need a waiver to come back in, whether it's the Army or some other branch. And he had, and to add to the extra wrinkle, so he was leaving training, going back to the state. So he technically he was having to have the 214 come off active duty. He was still a member of the Tennessee National Guard. So that adds another additional wrinkle on this. Again, I understand it doesn't explain some of the other stuff. That's what the RE code is.
Commissioner Beverly, I'm conflicted on this one because we have to trust each other as law enforcement officers, that when you say something to another officer, they have to take it as the truth and that they have checked out all the necessary information. But at the start of your career, you signed a piece of paper that was false, and you're the one that pays the penalty for that. You understand that?
Yes, sir. I understand where it's coming from. Like I said, I never tried to deceive anybody. I submitted all my paperwork and I thought everything was taken care of.
Go ahead.
In light of everything that's been shared here, kind of where we're at and on the paperwork and everything, I was gonna make a motion for no action.
That was where I was headed as well. So if you want to make that motion, I'll second.
Commissioner Jeffers' motion for no action.
Commissioner Beverly, second.
Discussion.
We have a motion and a second for no action and discussion from Commissioner Parks.
So for clarity for the members, he is on tomorrow's docket, is that right? Director?
Yes, he is.
So with no action here, then the agency and the officer will be there tomorrow to go through this again for the, to approve or deny the waiver for him to go. So when the rest of the board's here tomorrow, maybe we can speed through that. You understand that?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion for no action, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Hearing none, motion carries, no action.
Yes, sir.
Jasper Police Department. You would go ahead and step up. This is regarding Lilian M. Lockhart. Ms. Lockhart was submitted for decertification based on her resignation in lieu of termination. You would, for the record, sir, just identify yourself and tell us the circumstances that led us here.
Yes, sir. Donald Dykes. I work for the Jasper Police Department. I'm the GDI plus a lieutenant with the department. On July 26, 2024, I received a phone call from one of Marion County 911 dispatcher stating that he had spoken with another dispatcher who had concerns that Patrolman Lilian Lockhart was acting unusual and there was an odor of alcohol coming from her person. I notified Chief Billy Mason on a phone call, and he informed me to go check on the allegations and what to do if the allegations were correct. I responded to the police department, called Miss Lockhart in to meet me at the department. When Officer Lockhart arrived, I noticed that there was an odor of alcohol coming from her person. I questioned Officer Lockhart about the odor of alcohol and asked her if she was drinking. Officer Lockhart informed me that she had consumed one drink at noon when she was preparing food. I asked her to let me know, or let me look in her eyes, and they were watery and red in color. I asked Officer Lockhart if she had a problem, and she stated yes. She wasn't in a good place at the time. I asked her if she needed help, and she stated yes. That she did. I informed Officer Lockhart that we needed to go to the hospital and take a BAC test, which Officer Lockhart consented to. I took Officer Lockhart's department issued firearm at this time, and she was taken by me and Human Resources of the town of Jasper to Park Ridge West Hospital for a BAC. When analysis of the BAC come back, Officer Lockhart received 2 copies. Officer Lockhart provided a copy of the results to the town of Jasper. Due to the results of the BAC, Officer Lockhart was placed on suspension and asked that she would be contacted by the chief after he met with the city attorney, the mayor of the town, and himself. On July the 29th, Ms. Lockhart resigned her position for the town of Jasper as a police officer.
Commissioner Wilbur, what were the BAC results?
BAC results was a 0.7.
Commissioner Jeffers, I was trying to read through, was she on duty or off duty?
She was on duty. She had came in, her shift was from 5 to 5. I think it was around 8 o'clock when we went and had the BAC board.
Thanks, sir.
It was all handled administrative, which at this time, I think, District Attorney's Office has contacted, TBI and TBI is investigating.
So Commissioner Parton, I was reading through your submittal here
Yes, sir.
and says noticed the odor of alcohol, which came in the office, questioned Officer Lockhart about the odor of alcohol, and I asked her if she was drinking. Officer Lockhart informed me that she had consumed one drink at noon when she was cooking. I asked her to let me look in her eyes, and they were watery and red in color. I asked Officer Lockhart if she had a problem. Okay, you asked her if she had a problem, or if somebody did,
Yes, sir, I did.
and she stated that she wasn't in a good place.
Yes, sir.
I asked her if she needed help.
Yes, sir.
She stated yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay, let's stop right there.
Yes, sir.
What actions were taken based off of that confession of needing help?
Once we, got to the hospital and got the BAC information, myself, human resource, and the hospital give her pamphlets and the paperwork where she could go speak to somebody through like, programs.
Do you know if she's had any alcohol treatment, counseling?
I do not, sir.
Is,
I think I only spoke with Ms. Lockhart, once since the resignation.
and she, at what time did she resign, sir?
This happened on the 26th, and Ms. Lockhart's letter is on the 29th. It was received.
Okay. Would the city had given her, had she not resigned, would she had appeals opportunity? Was she explained about appeals opportunities and
I don't know.
alcohol assessments?
I wasn't in that meeting
Yes, sir.
with the mayor, the city attorney, and the chief. I do not know. I can't answer that question.
Did she elaborate to any of you what her issues might have been?
Yes, sir. If I may address the board here, Ms. Lockhart is a extremely good officer. She's a single mother. She had never been in law enforcement. She worked 10 years as a waitress. Nobody in her family was law enforcement, and she jumps right in law enforcement. She sent her own self to the academy. With her being a single mom in law enforcement, and it's hard. She's seeing stuff that we see stuff, y'all. We see stuff every day that normal people do not see. It takes certain individuals to be us. It's how we deal with stuff. I think Miss Lockhart had just got in mental wise in a bad spot. And we at Jackson Police Department are like family. And she didn't ask for, she didn't come to us for help. We would have, if she'd have talked to us.
Well, I know.
She's like a daughter to me because she worked for me.
I know sometimes we get put in those bad positions between being an administrator and then also a friend.
Yes, sir.
And you're right with the law enforcement. There's no one to follow up to see if there was anybody from the administration, whether it's the police department or city hall, that suggested somebody, or, and I don't remember, did you ask what the BAC was? What was the BAC?
117.
117. That's pretty strong.
Yes, sir. Once we left going to the hospital, she advised me that she had a drink before. She came to work. Once we got to BA, we was leaving, I looked at her and I said, Michelle, I said, girl, I said, you've been drinking all day, haven't you? She started crying on me, said, yes, she had.
And most of the time, that's when the people start routinely calling in sick or not
She
showing up for.
never missed a day's worth of work.
So you need, was this out of character for her?
I think it had started right out of, with my figuring of numbers from arrest and citations and stuff like that. I think it had started right about a month beforehand because Ms. Lockhart was leading our department in DUI arrest. She is one terrific officer and, you know,
Okay.
and, you know, we make mistakes and she's made a mistake.
Thank you, that's all I have.
Commissioner Wilbur, I usually don't hear officers giving such praise to someone who they put up for decertification. Whose decision was it to move to decertify? Was it yours?
We felt like at the department, that it was the right thing to do, to bring it up. We didn't want to hide nothing, but just turn in a resignation. I had, spoke to, Mr., let me think what his name is, he's an investigator we do, Bruce Cantrell. And we had spoke about the incident, what I needed to do, me and the chief had, decided on when I turned the paperwork and stuff in, and, you know, she is being investigated to the DA's office for TBI because I think that we handled it administrative. The DA's office contacted TBI, they're wanting to pursue criminal charges on her.
Mr. Bello, what is the, her status in, is it a CADIS?
But while we wait on that status, I've got a question. How many officers are on patrol at a time? In two? Is there a supervisor on duty?
No, sir.
Do the officers meet before they go out on patrol, or do they just kind of come on in?
I know where you're going with this, and I can explain.
Well, I mean, I was just gonna ask, I mean,
No.
did anybody have contact with her before she went on patrol and?
No, sir.
Okay, how did the dispatcher wind up?
I think she might have went by dispatch, but Miss Lockhart, we got video, her body cam. Miss Lockhart was working a wreck. There was 4 Marion County Sheriff's Office, 3 highway patrolmen there, while Miss Lockhart was there working this wreck. Nobody said a word. Miss Lockhart was not unsteady on her feet, and Miss Lockhart didn't have slurred speech when I dealt with her. So with all those other officers that was on scene, once I got her to the station and asked her about the alcohol, I'm like, okay, we're gonna go up there maybe 0.12, 0.14 something. It blew me away when it was a 0.17. Because I mean.
0.17, not 0.017, 0.17.
0.17, yes, sir.
I mean, that's,
Yes, sir.
I mean, that's more than twice the legal limit.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Commissioner Beverly, you would, sorry.
No, I'm sorry, I think.
Yes, it's that.
Oh, I
She's
apologize.
not currently with any law enforcement agencies at this time.
I apologize.
No, I was, so. You said the TBI is currently looking at this.
Yes, sir. I think the findings, they called me the other day. I think the findings has already been turned over to the district attorney.
I would reserve us taking any action until we decide, hear from what the district attorney wants to do on this case, and
I think they're gonna present it to the grand jury.
and respectfully to Ms. Lockhart and you, I would almost want to, I'm gonna go ahead and make the motion that we table this.
Can I ask that can we speak to Ms. Lockhart just briefly?
Yeah.
Director,
I'm not gonna ask her about her case.
well, okay, because if there is something going to grand jury, this recorded, just so you know your rights, this could be captured as discovery to be used against you. And you don't have to answer any questions at all to us, and you have a right for legal counsel.
Yes,
Very quickly, identify yourself for the record.
Lilian Michelle Lockhart.
So typically what we do in these situations, I'm gonna ask, would you be willing to sign a voluntary suspension of your post commission until such time as we can hear this after your other cases have been discharged?
No.
So to let the informal committee know, she is eligible to continue working. And so she could be hired and she could work.
Mr. Beverly, I would ask, Council, can you, just to cover our base, can you expand on what that temporary order is and how that would work, just to make sure that it's out there for anyone watching?
Yes, Ms. Lockhart, so typically if an individual has pending litigation, whether that's criminal or civil, we give them the opportunity to enter it's like an indefinite suspension, so it's not a certain period of time. It would just be until that litigation closed. That would keep you from having to violate your Fifth Amendment rights by talking to the commission today. It would also make it to where you were not eligible to be what is a police officer until your potential criminal case was closed. At which time your potential criminal case was closed, whether that was with no action from the grand jury or some other outcome, you would be eligible to then come back before the commission and seek reinstatement, or seek to continue this informal hearing at that time, depending on the outcome of the potential criminal charges.
Commissioner Jefferson. The one thing, and you don't have to speak, but the one thing I have a concern with is that, you know, I understand you're on duty and different things happen, but you came back at 0.17.
Yes, sir.
All right. And I understand you had a traffic accident that you helped work. So, I mean, we can what if something to death, but you know, the thing about it is, had you wind up having to use force on someone, whether it wind up being a taser, baton, mace, firearm, this, that, and the other, that could have boded very bad for the individual you were trying to arrest. Maybe there was a reasoning for somebody to be arrested or not, but that would also have been very bad for you, because the first thing that would have happened is they would have pulled your BAC right there.
Yes.
Just because you were involved. To be at the level what they were talking about, and you still at that, you know, I don't know your situation, but to be able to function doing that at 0.17, it sounds like this has been an ongoing problem for a long time. You don't have to answer that.
So if I may add, I did turn myself into a functioning alcoholic. That's the point that I was at. I have since quit drinking. I'm currently participating in Alcoholics Anonymous meetings. I talk with my pastor on a weekly basis. I'm messed up bad. There's no way around it. And anyone else, if I had pulled someone over on the side of the road in my situation, I know what I would have done. So, but I'm working on myself, and regardless of whether this is decided today or later after CBI and the DA's office concludes their investigation, regardless, I'm taking a slight leave of absence. I'm going to make sure that I've got this problem under control before I ever try to come back to law enforcement if I'm allowed to.
So currently, have you applied for anywhere to work?
No, I'm just taking a break right now.
Okay. Given the circumstance of what, you know, been kind of said there and where we're at, I'm going to have to wind up making a motion to wind up to decertify. Sorry.
We have a motion to decertify.
I wanted to go back to my original point. After being a further explanation of the temporary order or suspension order, is that something you would entertain today?
Yes.
Okay.
So you would entertain
As the lady explained to me.
the voluntary?
I guess we need a formal motion then to.
Well, we can set a formal motion to, I think the most palatable thing in that case would be to basically reset this to next month and give legal an opportunity to work through a agreed order of suspension with Ms. Lockhart. And if by this time next month that she has not signed that, I think we have a different conversation.
With that being said, I'll rescind the motion.
We now have no motion on the floor. Do we have a motion to reset this to next month?
Commissioner Beverly, so moved.
Commissioner Wilbur, yeah.
We have a motion.
Just a discussion point, and this is mainly to the agency.
Yes, sir.
I'm a little concerned. I know y'all are friends, you consider everybody family, but the fact that she was operating a police car at a 17% 0.17, and you didn't take charge, or you didn't charge her for DUI, knowing what risk she put your agency and other people in your community at risk, that concerns me. That's all I gotta say about that.
And also, I think one thing to note just in this discussion phase as well is that in this document that was provided, she was not forthcoming with her supervisor when questioned about it. You know, one drink at lunch does not a 0.17 make. I guess depending on the size, but typically I would say one drink does not get you to that point. So we have a motion to reset this to next month and to discuss it again next month. And we have a proper second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll take the vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. We'll reset it to next month.
Ms. Lockhart, if you have investigated creep, he'll put you on information and then you can get some feedback.
Okay. Next one on the agenda is Jason Hill of the Tennessee Department of Safety. If a representative of the Department of Safety would step up to the podium. Mr. Hill was submitted for decertification based on termination. So if you would identify yourself and your agency and your position and give us the circumstances that led us here today.
Yeah, I'm Jacob Stilo. I'm the captain of the Highway Patrol's Office of Professional Accountability. So I want to go back to kind of starting in 2023. First, Ryan Hill was hired as a trooper in 1997. And starting in the middle of January of 23, kind of going through March, he had some issues that led to him taking a voluntary reassignment from a position of a THP trooper to a driver's license examiner. This was due to some a series of emails that were concerning to the department and that kind of led us to believe that this was the best course of action was to remove him as a trooper and place him in a position as a driver's license examiner. Fast forward that, so he stayed there January, started the emails through the middle of March. The department reassigned him Wednesday, September 20th, 2023 to the position of DL examiner. So he stayed there through, then we'll go forward to April of 2024, April 24th. Mr. Hill began to send other departmental members a series of emails which were concerning to the people that were receiving them, and as well as the departmental leadership. They were, some of them religious in nature, also led to some of the employees he was sending the emails to be concerned with the tone that the emails were taking. They felt they were not only inappropriate, but also began to rise to the level of harassment. So that's kind of where we were in April of 2024. Now I want to take you to April 20, hang on one second, then April 28th, yes. The department was notified that Mr. Hill had been arrested by the Tullahoma Police Department for stealing a vehicle. At that time, he had followed an individual in the Walmart parking lot. And when that individual went into Walmart. He took her vehicle and was arrested a short time later after being pulled over by the Tullahoma Police Department. Based on not only the stealing of the vehicle, but the previous incidents that had led to him being removed from the position of trooper, the nature of the emails that he had sent to departmental personnel dating all the way back to 2023, Mr. Hill was terminated from the department, and then we requested decertification. We'll look at the memo that was the disciplinary recommendation. If you're there's some examples of the email of some of the emails he sent are contained in that document. And then some of the facts surrounding the arrest, some of the statements made to Tullahoma PD when he was pulled over for the stolen vehicle are also contained in that document, which had some concerning statements.
Questions from the commissioners? Okay, you would have a seat. Mr. Hill. Would identify yourself for the record.
Yeah, my name is Jason Roundhill. I used to work for Tennessee Department of Safety.
Give us your side.
All right, so there was a clerical error. I started with the Tennessee Department of Safety in 2010. 1997 would have been my brother. Kind of irrelevant, but just so he knows. I'm quite embarrassed of what I went through. I've been a police officer for over 23 years. I'm 43. I've never been arrested in my life. It was an emotional time for me. So going back to October 2022, we have pending litigation on this case, and I'm here today to ask for this to be suspended, and I will sign paperwork where I will not work for another department while we have pending litigation. We have a lawsuit already filed in Lincoln County for an ADA lawsuit, and we're working on a 1983 action lawsuit for a federal case right now. In Lincoln County, our Lieutenant Terry had a group chat that had 15 troopers and troopers from Lincoln, Moore, and Bedford County. In this group chat, I'm sure y'all heard of all kinds of cases before, but there were a lot of inappropriate messages and pictures and those types of things going on. And I asked to be removed from this group chat 3 to 4 times. Each time Lieutenant Terry refused to remove me from this group chat, leading up to January 13th, 2023. Between January 11th, 2023 and January 13th, 2023, there was personal attacks that started happening against me by troopers, calling me ignorant, stupid, and stuff like this. Of course, I have 3,900 hours of law enforcement training. I finished #1 in the state on the sergeant's test in 2019, 2020. So I feel like there was 2 sergeants in this group chat and a lieutenant, and there was inappropriate supervision along with actions in this group chat, and I was getting stressed out about it. There was text messages at 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, and of course, all this would get brought out in court, but it really stressed me out, and I started going through hundreds of hours without sleep, started going through sleep deprivation, psychosis, and the reason why I did get arrested in April, it was actually on my birthday. That's what I got for my 43rd birthday. It was a good birthday present, wasn't it? But I was going through sleep deprivation there as well, and I'm seeking psychiatric help. for that. I'm diagnosed with delusional disorder. So it wasn't like an action. I just said, I'm gonna go steal a car today. I actually had 5 image male voices in my head. No, sorry. Do you want me to continue or?
One moment, sir. Commissioner Beverly, kind of want to give him the same warning. He's got pending litigation as we did the previous applicant. It's set for a status hearing in October 31st in Coffee County. Sir, I just want to remind you, this is open to discovery. And honestly, sir, there are some deeper concerns there. You said you're willing to sign a temporary suspension order today?
Of course.
I'm going to go ahead and make that motion to table this for 1 month pending a signature of a temporary suspension order, and I'm going to make that motion.
The,
1 month, sir.
We have a motion from Commissioner Beverly. Do we have a second?
Sure, Wilbur, second.
Okay. Commissioner Wilbur, second. Any discussion?
Good. Yes. I didn't know if you had anything.
No, well,
may I have a question?
We are discussion amongst the commissioners right now, so. And you understand the motion is to reset this to next month, and you said you would sign an agreed order of suspension of your post commission. Is that accurate?
Yes, sir. The question I do have is about the month. Yeah, this is gonna be a long drawn out process. Is there a way to extend it further?
We are setting this off a month because if something goes awry and there is no suspension order that's signed, we will hear this again next month. That is the purpose of setting it off a month, to give you time to communicate with our legal division to get that order taken care of. So, and once that's taken care of, they will present it to us in the informal committee, and then it'll be suspended until such time as your legal issues have been adjudicated.
Thank you.
So a motion to reset this to next month. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I'll be honest with you, considering the severity of everything that I've seen with the warrants and everything, where I'm feeling right now, as far as in the discussion phase of this, I mean, I'm feeling basically to go ahead and make motion to decertify right now myself. So, I mean, that's just kind of where I'm at, just for while we're in discussion, so.
Just to kind of talk through that a little bit, a decertification by the informal committee is appealable, where he would still then be active and eligible, where that suspension would get him in the NDI is suspended and immediately upon signature by the chair, just so everyone's on the same page.
Further discussion?
I add to that, or I shared those same concerns. But with it, to get some of those concerns addressed, I'm afraid would put him in potential jeopardy of self-incriminating himself, which is why I made that motion, but I'm very much thinking along the same lines you are.
Any further discussion? All right, the motion is to reset this to next month, and pending your communication with our legal counsel. We have a proper motion and a second. No further discussion, so we will take the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Hearing none. Motion carries. It's reset to next month. Please see Investigator Creed. He'll tell you how to communicate with the attorneys. Staying with the Tennessee Department of Safety, in the issue concerning Britton Wan, as representative of the Department of Safety would step up to the podium. Mr. Wan was submitted for decertification based on his termination. Sir, I know we've already spoken, but if you could, just for the record, give your name and affiliation and position, and then tell us how we got to where we are today.
Yes, my name is Jacob Stilo. I'm the captain of the Office of Professional Accountability for the Tennessee Department of Safety and Homeland Security. For this matter, yesterday, we spoke with the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation and some members of the District Attorney's Office. And their request is for us not to put this forward today. So the department's request would be to postpone this hearing for a month while the pending criminal actions against Mr. Wygand are handled.
So there is a request from the Tennessee Department of Safety and Homeland Security to push this 1 month.
Can we do the same temporary suspension?
If Mr. Wygan's open to that.
Sir, can you step down for a second? Mr. Wygand, are you? Yes, sir. Would you be willing to enter into an agreed order of suspension?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Motion for temporary suspension.
Commissioner Beverly, second.
Would you be willing to amend your motion to set this off for 1 month?
Yes, sir. I'd also include for reschedule for 1 month.
Okay. Still second?
Yes, that's good.
So we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll take the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Hearing none, motion passes. Please see Investigator Creed. Whitwell Police Department, Tanner Jackson. Mr. Jackson was submitted for decertification based on his termination.
Can I interrupt? Sure.
You certainly may, Investigator.
Kevin Creed, Post Investigator. We're resetting all these for next month. Technically, we do not have a meeting scheduled for next month for a decertification. We just need to make sure we have members that will be here for that meeting before we start pushing everything till next month.
It would be at 1 o'clock Thursday, normal time.
Okay. We could possibly do a quick informal to just accept those suspensions prior to starting business of the day. So thank you very much, though, Investigator Creed. He's on top of things. We love Investigator Creed. Sir, I'm assuming you're representing the Whitwell Police Department. If you would just give your name, affiliation, and your title, and then let us know why it is that we're here today.
Good morning. My name is David Boyd. I'm the Chief of Police for Louisville Police Department. I submitted for Mr. Jackson to be decertified. There's a couple instances. At the end of June, this is the first instance, I was notified by a father of a 15-year-old child back earlier in June, while Mr. Jackson was working for New Hope part-time. He had 3 juvenile females inside of his patrol car running emergency traffic, and even carried them into the state of Alabama. New Hope, they requested the county to investigate, and when I got the information, I too requested the county to investigate this. The county investigated. They spoke to the 3 juveniles, and I brought it to the attention of my city manager as well. The city or the town of New Hope, they just stopped using them as part-time. I issued a 5-day suspension. I asked him why he did this, and Mr. Jackson stated, I just wanted to be the cool cop. The suspension ended, it was a 5-day suspension. I was notified the investigation being completed on July 3rd. He was to come back to work on night shift on July 17th. That is the first instance. The second, on the 26th of July, around 7 or 8 o'clock I was notified by Eastridge Police that Mr. Jackson was a suspect in a stalking call. From their report, it was determined that he went to Park Ridge East Hospital in my patrol car, in my uniform, and spoke to the security guard, said that he was there to assist with a CON patient. He was not there to assist with a CON patient. A female that he had been talking to and had relations with that week. He had been talking to her throughout the night. She did not want to have any more, she did not want to meet him. So he shows up at her work, which was Park Ridge East. Begins to search the entire hospital, even goes into the ICU looking for this female. Finds her in the hallway. She's with a patient and he's talking sexually to her. She wanted him to leave. He then goes to his car where he parked next to her car. She was getting off work, saw that he was parked next to her car, gave her keys to her boss and another coworker, and had them move her car away from where he was. Well, when he saw that someone moved his car, he texted her and was like, "Why did you have someone move your car?" And he then left the property. She then goes to Eastridge Police and files a report. At that time, I did my investigation, got the report from Eastridge. I got his GPS location from his vehicle that showed that he was there. Mr. Jackson was working a part-time or an extra duty job over in Chattanooga, sitting in a parking lot on Broad Street downtown. And whenever he was done with that employment, drove about 7 or 8 miles the opposite direction of his home to go to this hospital. The third incident was actually brought up to my attention last week in court. One of the district attorneys pulls me to the side and notifies me that Mr. Jackson is in a Snapchat group and has released body cam footage from a vehicular homicide on Highway 108. And also has released a picture of a deceased male into this chat whenever he was working part-time for the city of Jasper. Because of this, the reason how they found the information was the victim's family from the vehicular homicide on Highway 108. I believe it was the niece of the deceased is in this group chat. Also in this group chat is the family of the suspect. And at this time, the TBI is investigating this.
Commissioner Wilbur, I'd like to hear more about this transporting 3 juveniles across state lines. What more do you know about that?
I know he was working a part-time job for New Hope Police and was apparently had interacted with them, I guess, at the local, there's a little beach area by a cave. While talking with them, I don't know the full-on specifics, but I know the 3 juveniles did get in the car. There was a Snapchat video of them running emergency traffic with lights and sirens going. The family of one of the juveniles has Live 360 that showed their speed and showed them going into the state of Alabama. New Hope is on the Alabama line, so it was touching that jurisdiction, but it still crossed over into the state of Alabama.
Do you know if anyone has notified the U.S. District Attorney's Office about this?
I do not know. I know that the county took everything to the DA's office, and from what I understand, they declined to prosecute.
That may have been a question of jurisdiction.
This is Commissioner Green, were they male or female?
So they're all female juveniles.
Okay, thank you.
This is Commissioner Barton, just for inquiry purposes that I've been hearing about on my side of the world down there. Can you talk to me about Whitwell's policy of the city allowing your patrol cars and uniformed officers to go into other jurisdictions like Chattanooga City and work this security stuff? Because I get lots of calls about constables and other police departments. Or do you notify the sheriff or the police chief over there that your patrol cars are gonna be working? I think we may run into some legislative issues in the future with this.
We had, Officer Jackson and one of my other officers back earlier in the winter were working part-time with UTC police at events.
Okay, so that was worked through the.
It was working
the
through
college?
there,
Okay,
and I believe this one was probably through just a, I guess, a security firm.
were they working for security? Who was paying them?
It was not the city.
Was it the University of Tennessee?
Or it would be the University of Tennessee Chattanooga that would, if, for the.
You keep saying security firm, I wanted to know.
No, I was talking about the one that he was on, in July.
Well, I'm not talking about when he went on the joyride down in Alabama. I'm talking about over in Chattanooga that you mentioned.
Yes, this was not through UTC. This was, he had it lined up through a security firm. And he explained all he was doing
Well,
was.
what about the city of Whitwell? Do you have officers and patrol cars in other jurisdictions working security?
He was the only one at that time. We have no more officers that work over in Chattanooga doing any type of security.
Because I was gonna say, just, you're kind of setting yourself in your city up with trouble. Yeah, the Alabama story would be really interesting to hear the details on, but I'm kind of bored today.
So just from a departmental standpoint, you had said security firm. Do you know what security firm that he was working for?
I do not.
Do you know what his exact duties were?
His duties were to sit in the parking lot of an apartment complex during the night. That was
But
it.
you don't know who the employer is.
That is correct.
So, and to echo Sheriff Parton, perhaps as the chief executive of your agency, that would be something important to know.
It would be.
Because they're out there in your equipment, in your uniform, your gun, and acting under the color of law for your agency.
I think he was working for New Hope at that time, though, Whitwell. Is that correct?
Which incidents?
Sitting in the apartment complex.
No, he was full-time at my agency.
Okay.
Just, you might wanna do more research on who your people are gonna be working for, because you're the one gonna be on the hook for that.
I know a lot of these were set under my previous chief, allowing them to work extra jobs. From here on out, my guys, they're gonna stay inside of our county, inside of our city.
Extra jobs are okay, it's just, there's.
Fraught with danger.
Yeah, yes, it is, and everybody needs to know, and papers need to be signed, and those jurisdictions, heads of state need to know that they're there and that kind of stuff, because I may need to call you sometime for something, but anyway, I just wanted to get some clarity on that. Like I said, the Alabama story would be really interesting.
Any other questions for the chief? Hearing none. Thank you very much, Chief. You would just have a seat. We'll make way back up. Mr. Jackson.
Good afternoon, Tanner Jackson.
Give us your side.
Okay, I started my police career back when I was a kid. I worked for the Hamilton County Sheriff's Office in Explorers. Went to the Army, got home, came back, worked at the jail for a little while, started my career, put myself through academy and used in the military. Started my career December 22. Since I've been with the city of Whitwell, I received Officer of the Year for accommodations, several other accommodations for different agencies for various pursuits and just good work. I need a little more money because police work to pay a lot. So I started working part-time at New Hope. So while I was working at New Hope, there's a city park that the chief over there wants us to kind of maintain and hang out throughout the night. There was a group of teenagers, and the teenager didn't question here, the specific ones, the three that happen to be female. I knew from working in the city of Whitwell, they're all from Whitwell. So it wasn't like there's three random people. They wanted to see what the back of the police car was like. I lived in the back of the police car, more kind of community policing like and not any other type of way. So I lived in the back of the car. They're like, okay, what is it like with the lights and sirens on? So it was done, but I was like, okay. So I took them down the road. We never crossed an Alabama state line. So I'm not sure where that rumor came up. But it doesn't sound right because we never crossed an Alabama state line. A lot of the information you guys heard was a very one-sided story as well and wasn't very thoroughly investigated. So after we went down the road, maybe half a mile, turned around, came back, dropped them back off. The same group of people that were still there were still hanging out and then left after that. The East Ridge incident, I was working extra job for security, sitting in the parking lot, badge and uniform on, with written consent from the chief at the time. I do have that paperwork if we do ever need to see in the future. While working that job, I got off that morning. I was texting the girl I had a relationship with all night long. She told me where she was in the hospital specifically, and I was just being nice. I was going to show up and bring her candy bar, hang out for a little bit. She never expressed an interest not to talk to me anymore. Never expressed an interest to end things or anything like that. She talked to me the entire night long. So when I showed up at the hospital, I asked her where she was. She told me she was in med surg. I don't know where that is in the hospital. So I walked around the public areas, tried to figure it out. Couldn't find it. So then I got with a security guard. I asked the security guard because she was sitting on a CON, or was a CON patient that she was sitting on that just got released to normal. He didn't know exactly where that was either, so he walked me around for a little bit. And eventually I met up with her and found her. I got her a candy bar because I was, again, being nice to talking to her. Gave her the candy bar. There was still nothing wrong. She was happy to see me. We walked around the hospital for about 10, 15 minutes while I was there. There was still nothing wrong. I'm sure you can see on the cameras that they did a thorough investigation on it. Walked around. She got off at work in 10 minutes, and the rest of the time she was just doing like a briefing for the next shift of nurses. So I went out and waited in the car. I said, I'll catch you later. So the plan was for her to come back over to my house. And when I left outside the parking lot to wait by her car, I figured it was her truck because she'd been over to my house multiple times that week, that apartment. So I knew kind of what she drove. So I was hanging up by her car. Somebody else came and got the keys, and I thought that was weird. So like any reasonable person would do in a relationship, I texted her and I said, hey, do you have somebody else that moved your car? And she never replied, and it was a little bit, and I had to work later on the afternoon too. So then I just left.
This is Commissioner Parton. So she was all happy to see you and it was all consensual. And is that what your statement is?
Yes, sir. And I
So
also
why is there do we have a police report that she made?
Yes, sir.
And why is it not in this packet? Why did you not submit that? I don't have it.
This was my first termination that I've ever submitted.
Okay, understand.
For the record, that's the chief speaking.
Yes, Chief, come up front here just a second, please. So does that report show that this female that he was in a relationship is the complainant?
Yes.
For record?
Yes.
And does that female state that she was being stalked?
The initial call on the CAD card should come in as a stalking call. I have that as well.
Okay, and East Ridge made that report. What's
Yes.
the reporting agency?
It was the East Ridge Police Department.
And on what date and time?
It would have been July 26th.
Okay. I just wanted to. For the record. You can come back, Mr. Jackson.
Sir, go ahead to that.
So are you stating to this committee that this female made a false report?
Yes, sir. The report she made was that she found it, I believe the exact words she used is she was just uncomfortable or something that I showed up to her workplace. And I believe it's because she was talking to somebody else that she'd worked with at the time. There's no other information that she gave me. She never told me to stop messaging her. She actually messaged me the entire night before.
Have you supplied those text messages and all that communication to the East Ridge Police Department?
They haven't asked. I did go over there and give
They
my
didn't
side.
ask, but you didn't offer.
Yes, I did. I went over there and talked to him directly and gave my side of the story. When I got
You give them
home,
your side, did you provide textual, factual, black and white information that you have on your phone?
no, sir.
Can you provide that to us today?
That was deleted because she blocked me on Snapchat. So it deleted all the information.
You still have it on yours?
I went down and tried to delete,
Do you have it with you?
my phone.
Can you show us that?
It doesn't. So when you block somebody on Snapchat, it erases it completely.
Oh.
So there was no messages or anything I could use for my side of the story.
Okay.
Were you in uniform when you went by the hospital?
Yes, sir. I just got off working an extra job that was 5 minutes away from where I was.
When you located, your,
The girl I was talking to.
Paramore, at the hospital, did you have like a sexually charged conversation?
No, that's also false. And I think he just comes up with that.
What did you? The chief is lying.
Well, I've read the research report also, and it didn't say anything that we had a sexual conversation or any type of
What did you
stuff.
talk about?
Like how she was there, how I was working. We kind of walked around the hospital. She showed me where certain things was. We went to like the little baby area and she was like, look at these cute little babies. Just walking around. It was a normal, reasonable conversation that any couple that was talking or going to date would have.
And you were there in Whittle's uniform?
Yes, sir, I was.
In Whittle's car?
Yes, sir, I was.
Did you really think that was a good idea?
At the time, I didn't think it was anything bad. Our policy.
You wasn't thinking correctly.
Yes, sir. Our policy did say that you could stop, as long as you're coming home from or going to work, you can stop places. So I figured I would be in the right within the policy there, but
How far out of the way was the hospital?
5 minutes. It was, I believe on my phone from the exact position sitting there on Broad Street was 8 miles.
So 8 miles.
Yes, sir.
I mean, so like de minimis would not, I mean, typically we would consider that like a de minimis use, like you turned off the road and went like 0.2 miles to the store or something like that on the way home. This was 8 miles, you said.
Yes, sir.
So that was a pretty significant detour.
We've got also, Chief Boyd lets us take our patrol cars for stuff on the way home. Like I'm gonna do jujitsu. I'm a jujitsu athlete right now. And Chief Boyd lets me take my patrol car well out of my way to go to jujitsu off of Dodge Avenue, and I live in Red Bank. So that's a good 15, 20 minutes outside of my way that he allows us to take our patrol car to do. And he's cleared up before with me.
But I mean, you would also probably say that jujitsu might be training related.
Yes, sir. I think it would.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Commissioner Wilbur.
Commissioner Wilbur, I just have a quick question. You're talking about other people are lying, to the commission. This statement by the chief says, you went to the hospital and you lied to security and said you were there to assist with a CON.
Yes, ma'am.
Did you do that?
No, ma'am. I told the security guard I was there to see a nurse that was sitting on a CON. And I guess he took it that I was in uniform, that I was there for a CON itself. But I was looking for the nurse that was sitting on the CON, so I guess that's where that got misconstrued.
And is it, jumping back to the 3 juveniles, is it against policy and procedure to activate lights and sirens for looking cool?
It is against, well, New Hope technically doesn't have any policies. I was kind of given just a car just to go out, but I would say it would be unethical for having people on the patrol car and activating lights and sirens.
So you just said they don't have policies, so you got no guidance when you.
Correct. Yes, ma'am. I was just given a patrol car and they told me what to do. They say, here, go around here and answer calls. I said, yes, sir.
This is Commissioner Green, I'm gonna go back to the juvenile issue. How old were these girls?
I didn't know their exact age at the time, but apparently through an investigation, they're around 15, 16 maybe.
And your age is?
I was 22 at the time. I just turned 23.
How were they dressed? So they were at the park?
They were fully
beach?
clothed. Yes, sir. They were fully clothed at the time.
How long were you there in the car with you?
I'm not sure. It wasn't very long. It was enough to where they could sit in the back seat. I took them down the road, turned around and came back. They were in the very back of the car with the cage.
What was your, like, what was the thing that you hoped to, that I mean, why would you do that? Like, what is the end result that you envision coming out of that?
I knew these people, they worked in the city of Whitley, worked a couple different gas stations, and I was just trying to be cool. Just trying to be the cool guy, showing people, pretty much community policing, just lights and sirens, and maybe just went a little too far doing it.
Commissioner Jeffers, I make a motion to decertify.
Commissioner Wilbur, second.
We have a motion and a second to decertify. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll take the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Hearing none, motion carries. Investigator Creed will explain, or he'll explain the next steps. One last call. Ralph Confer. All right, who are you with?
Shelby, Pomerance. I was out, Attorney Jack Leonard, I represent Ms. Pomerance.
We'll call, I'm going back through the roll here. Everybody was here, or not here. Ralph Confer, Memphis Police Department. Ralph Confer. Anasia Lunsford. Anasia Lunsford. James Atkins. James Atkins. Okay, let's, if it would so please the commission, and we will, we'll get to the issue of Ms. Pomerance here in just a moment. On Ralph Confer, who was submitted for decertification based on resignation in lieu of termination. Anasia Lunsford was submitted for decertification based on resignation with disciplinary actions pending. And Ryder James Brentley Adkins submitted for decertification based on termination. We can handle those as one, which would be a motion to decertify based on default. Not hearing.
Commissioner Jeffers, I'll make a motion to decertify on default.
Commissioner Beverly, second.
We have a motion and a second for those, check my math here, 3 individuals. Any discussion? Hearing none, take the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Hearing none, motion carries.
What's the situation on Mr. Cotton that's on the list?
Mr. Cotton has been reset to next month. Okay, Shelby and Pomerance Paris Police Department. Typically, we'll let the department go first, but we have counsel here. Are you prepared to proceed today, or?
Well, I am, and just for the record, like I said, I was outside there. I didn't realize y'all were calling roll, so that's why I didn't answer up. Ms. Pomerance, I had to ask this case to be reset due to a conflict for myself from August to today. And she mistakenly thought it was at 1 p.m. She is on her way and should be here any minute. So I understand where she was misunderstood, because it was set at 1 in August. And so whenever we reset this, it was at 10, and I guess she overlooked that. My office has contacted her, and they had said 12:05. So I mean, we're a couple minutes, I understand. I don't know how this commission wants to proceed with that.
Would the commissioners be okay with a brief recess to allow the officer a chance to arrive? Recess.
Still recording.
Formal subcommittee is back in order, and we are back on the decertification request for Shelby Pomerance and the Paris Police Department. Ms. Pomerance was submitted for decertification based on termination. We have a representative from the Paris Police Department at the podium. Sir, if you would just give your name, your affiliation and your rank, and then tell us why we're here today.
Yes, sir. I'm Assistant Chief Ian Reed with the Paris Police Department. I am also the General Departmental Instructor for that department. Reason we are here today is the matter where we terminated Ms. Shelby Pomerance for untruthfulness and subsequently submitted her for decertification.
Go ahead.
The basic facts on this incident was on July the 12th, 2024. Chief Watson received a call from Sheriff Fry, who advised that Shelby had been in another domestic violence disturbance that had occurred in Benton County. That call was made to Chief Watson at about 11:30 p.m. He later received a call about 1 a.m. in the morning from Shelby, telling him what had happened about her altercation with her then boyfriend, CJ. She explained that she had been in another person's house, and that he'd been drinking quite a bit. Chief Watson at that time asked Ms. Pomerance, had she been drinking, to which she replied no. She also made the statement that CJ had been drinking quite a bit, and he normally doesn't drink, and that he had also stopped smoking weed because she was with him. The incident then continued on into Benton County, where it became physical, and the suspect left Benton County, returned to Henry County, and ended up in a barricaded standoff at that time. Based on our subsequent investigation of the incident, because how it had gotten so out of hand, we were able to determine that, in fact, Ms. Pomerance had been drinking when all the original incident started, and made a false statement to Chief Watson about not drinking at the time. There's a history of incidents that have happened in the past that led up to it being a termination instead of a write-up or a suspension. Some of those include a written warning for improper contact with a convicted sex offender in November the 20th of 2022. A written write-up for failure to comply with orders from the supervisor, October the 14th of 2023, where one of her sergeants had advised her to change a TCA code on a report. And a few days later, that had not been changed. She was written up on that by her supervisor. On December the 10th of 2023, she was also written up for dereliction of duty. On that date, she failed to investigate a complaint of a screaming on South Brewer Street. She received a complaint from a subject and did not respond to the address. Upon arrival to the location, she contacted by way of phone instead of radio Lieutenant Long, who was the oncoming day shift supervisor, and advised him of the situation. Lieutenant Long and other officers responded and pulled up to the scene. When they arrived, Officer Pomerance pulled off without any assistance to the other officers and had not checked on the safety or well-being of any occupants inside the residence. That was a violation of dereliction of duty. There were some other incidents where she was not written up. There were just calls for service. One was in January the 6th of 2024, where she was involved in an altercation at a local event center while off duty. Complainants alleged that she was acting inappropriately there. Officers from Sheriff's Department had to respond to her house at least twice, once to assist her in getting property after another incident with her then boyfriend in June the 9th of 2024. And there was another complaint that we have a CAD on, where the Sheriff's Department responded out on July the 2nd, a little after almost 1 a.m. for complaints of fire alarms.
So it's fair to say that this is not one incident, it is.
It's a totality of circumstances, yes, sir.
Questions from the commissioners? What, can you go into more detail on the sex offender situation?
It was an ex-boyfriend my understanding that she had dated in high school. He is on the registry. She had been warned to not have him around. He did continue to contact her via phone and had actually been at her house at one point, is our understanding. She was given a verbal warning, which is actually written, but it's considered a verbal, the first step in our punishment type scale.
Any other questions from the commission? All right, thank you very much, Chief. Would have a seat. Ms. Pomerance, your counsel, you'd both identify yourself.
Good afternoon. My name is Jack Leonard. I'm attorney for Ms. Pomerance out of Benton County Bar. And this is Ms. Pomerance. If I may, I'd like to just give a little bit of an introduction before we start with the question of Ms. Pomerance.
Go ahead.
Okay. And as far as this goes, I don't know if we want to take each of those allegations of the prior incidences in turn, or I guess we'll start with the one that was the firing offense. In this incident, Ms. Pomerance is a victim of domestic violence. This man was prosecuted, charged in Benton County General Sessions, and prosecuted for domestic violence. He entered a plea to a set-off order wherein he has to do certain things as far as domestic violence counseling, no violent contact with the victim, and there was an alcohol and drug counseling for the perpetrator. So in this incident, she was the victim and had cooperated with law enforcement for the prosecution of the offender. She had consumed alcohol prior that night. I believe whenever she spoke with the chief, this was some 6 to 7 hours later after she had consumed any alcohol. She was not under the influence, is what she will testify to, and is the truth as far as I'm concerned, and she is. And when asked, she characterized it more as a failure of communication, in that she was asked, was she drinking? And when she was talking to him, she was not drinking. Now, at 6 to 7 hours prior, she had some alcoholic beverages. She was not under the influence. She was off duty. And obviously she's over 21. She's a 30-year-old mother, single mother of one. She's been Paris Police Department's only law enforcement agency she's ever worked for. She was certified, I believe, in October of 2022. And in this case, there's no criminal charges against Ms. Pomerance. There's no criminal convictions. As stated previously, this is for decertification due to termination. So as far as the relationship with the person on the offenders registry, Ms. Pomerance would state and will that this relationship was prior to her employment with Paris PD, that they had been in a relationship before. After she was employed there, were no longer in a relationship. She did have some contact because there was a motorcycle that had to be sold, and that was the only contact. The fireworks, I mean, she lives out in the county. She doesn't live in a city or municipal place. I know in Benton County, there is no noise ordinance, and certainly shooting off fireworks at night close to the 4th of July is not an unusual occurrence. She also advised that she was working that night of July 2nd. So I'm unsure what that has to do with it. And again, she was struck. She tried to de-escalate the situation after she was assaulted. The the then boyfriend, which they are no longer together, was intoxicated at a place. She was trying to get him home. He became belligerent, struck her, made her bleed. She pulled over and got him out of the vehicle, and someone else came to pick him up. And at that point in time, then she goes home to her father's house, having not violated any laws. So that's a brief summary of our answers to the charges. She does not wish to work for the Paris Police Department. She's been terminated. She understands. She did appeal on the basis of why they terminated, as far as the dishonesty and stuff, because she doesn't feel like she was dishonest in her answer. And we would ask this commission to not decertify her and allow her to continue her employment in law enforcement. She is not employed anywhere right now with law enforcement, but she would seek to gain such employment.
Question for Mr. Bello. What is her separation status?
The Paris Police Department did submit her as terminated.
Well, I guess we'll start. There's a lot here. There's a lot here in this document. What is your side?
Which part? From the very beginning?
Just tell us your story.
Okay, so the very first verbal I had was for a registered sex offender. He was registered years prior. We had a relationship in 2014. I had a motorcycle that I wanted to trade for a Can-Am. He was still a friend. I honestly didn't even think about his charge with the policy for the department because I'd known him for so long. We traded the motorcycle. I went to a domestic. My ex-husband was very upset about it. He assumed that the person was in a relationship with me, which we were not. That person did have to call law enforcement because my ex-husband had taken my phone from me. So it looked as if I was using him as a backup or as a boyfriend to save me and my daughter because I couldn't contact. My ex-husband had texted him some nasty messages, which is how he knew. The incident for the write-up was over a TCA code that I had honestly changed in my car and thought that it accepted it. It was a malfunctioning computer. When I got wrote up for it, I just accepted it. I didn't argue it. I really felt like it was one of those things that you just learn from and make sure you check next time.
Want her to stop what? The technical issue.
It's still recording. We're okay.
It is. The 2-day suspension, I did actually respond to the call. The person came up to my car and told me about it. We were short-staffed, so there was not a sergeant or lieutenant on shift. I called the next lieutenant coming on because I just dropped off one of the new hires that I had in the car with me, and I'd seen him in the office. I still went and responded to the call. I spoke to 3 people with the call, and they said that there was a hoarder that was inside the home. I'd previously been to that home to evict people out of the home because it was condemned. So I waited for Lieutenant and them to get there because they had a full shift. I assumed it being the end of our shift that he was going to take it over. For the domestic situation that occurred July 12th, I had been drinking that day. We went to a friend's house. We went swimming with the children. CJ had started drinking quite a bit. I noticed it was going down pretty fast and he doesn't normally drink. So I loaded up the kids in a friend's car. He said he wanted his son with him. So I put his son in our truck and he got in the back seat. So his son went in the front seat. We went to my dad's. I was trying to de-escalate, hoping that maybe if we were around family, he wouldn't fight because it has been a fight before at home. We get to dad's. He continues to start chugging the alcohol. He goes outside. We figured he was just going to cool it off or go to sleep. He comes back in, aggressively pushes me against the wall and starts yelling. I said, that's fine, let's leave, let's get it done with, let's just go home. He gets in the backseat of the truck again. We get about 4 houses down. He slams a brewmate cup into my face. I pull into a driveway, try to wipe my face. He jumps out. He lays down behind the wheels of my truck. The tailgate that has the camera is broken. So I looked at my mirrors before pulling out. We were also in a curve. When I looked at my mirrors, he was laying underneath the tires and he said, just run me over. So I get out and I proceed to put him back in the truck again. And I'm like, just stop. Let's just go home. I start driving down the road again. He takes his shoes off. He throws them at me. Then he starts reaching through the front and trying to yank the steering wheel. So I pull into a bar that's a couple miles down the road. And my stepbrother calls me and he says, are you okay? I said, no, I'm not. I got out of the truck. I locked him in there until my dad and stepmom arrived. My stepbrother pulled up and he put him in his truck and took him home. That's when I got back to my dad's. Sheriff Fry had contacted me for access to my cameras. The sergeant on shift that came over to do the investigation asked us for a statement, and I wrote a statement stating that I had been drinking earlier that day. He asked if I was driving. I said, yes, I was. He asked me to take him and show him where I pulled in the driveway. I did. Come back. At that point, CJ was calling my phone threatening to shoot any officers that came. He went back in the house. He said he was gonna make a bloodbath if anybody entered. So he gets on the phone with Sheriff Fry and tells Sheriff Fry what voicemails are being left because I wasn't answering his call, so it was on voicemail. And we went back in the house. I said I need to call my chief because he's gonna find out about this and I'd rather be in front of it and tell him what's going on. So I call and tell him. Well, then I get off the phone with him and Sheriff said that they need access to the cameras. So I gave him access to the cameras. Then I FaceTime Chief and he'd asked, are you drinking? And I said, no, I'm not drinking. It was in the heat of the moment. I had been, and I wrote a statement that I had been that day. I was very upset. It was a lot going on. Wasn't trying to be dishonest whatsoever. I can see where it could be seen taken that way. I wasn't currently drinking and I was at the legal limit to drive. I mean, I was just trying to de-escalate and get him home to where it no longer was a problem.
Commissioner Jeffers, I have a question, on backing up there on the, with the sex offender, what crime was that individual charged with?
I do not know 100%, because I've never looked it up, but I did ask him personally his story. He was 27, she was 17. They had a relationship and the parents weren't happy.
And on the CJ individual, prior to this incident, have you all been cohabitated? I mean, living together?
We were, yes, we bought a house May of 2023. About April of this year, it started getting tense and we'd already talked about separating. That's where 2 other incidents had occurred. After the final one on July 12th, we have not been in the same residence since.
Thank you.
To that point, you stated that he had stopped smoking marijuana
Yes,
since becoming a law enforcement officer, had you
Yes.
witnessed this person smoke marijuana?
no, he would smoke those pens that you get from the shops. You buy them at the vape shops.
Commissioner Jeffers, on the information given, I make a motion to decertify.
We have a motion to decertify. Do we have a second?
Commissioner Beverly, second.
So we have a motion by Commissioner Jeffers, a second by Commissioner Beverly. Any discussion? I'll just opine, it's very disappointing to see somebody in front of this informal committee when we talk about in basic training on day 1 that we have a certain standard to uphold, that you represent more than just the name on your shirt and the name on the badge and the patch. that you wear at work. So it's very disappointing. Very disappointing. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll take the vote. All those in favor of the motion to decertify, say aye. Opposed?
No.
2 ayes, 1 nay. Motion carries. Investigator Creed will speak with you or your counsel and let you know the next steps. There is no further business on the agenda for this informal committee. The committee will stand recess or adjourn. I'm sorry. It's past lunchtime.